This is Erica Mitchell, and this is the case study for EDL 852. Section 1 is just about the case, and it is regarding a rural community school district which has an increasing population at 2% per year, so a larger school space is necessary. They were given some options on how to utilize the schools that they have and the possibilities of building a new school, and ultimately they decided to build a third building, like a middle school building. They also hired a new principal to the district that same year. She was hired 12 months prior to the new school opening, so she's heavily involved in the construction process. The new principal is Susan Potter, and she was given 3 responsibilities upon her hiring specifically, and that is making the staff decisions and deciding who's going to be hired at the new school, how many teachers and staff members they will need, etc. She also is in charge of organizing the school programs and collaborates with the architects and construction managers regarding the new building. She created an advisory committee to help build the mission and vision for the new school. It consisted of some teachers and some parents in the district. She wanted to be a part of the committee, but she did not want to lead. So a parent named Helen had agreed to lead the committee. The committee agreed to some guidelines prior to beginning their duties on the committee. And their first task was to create a vision statement, which was agreed upon in their guidelines. The conflict became when the advisory committee, however, they agreed upon the guidelines. They still decided they wanted Susan, the principal, to lead and create the vision statement. They set different expectations for her because she had that administrative title and expected her, because she was the principal, to be the leader of the committee, even though the agreed upon guidelines did not state that. Susan, they wanted her to make the decisions, develop the ideas, and all they wanted to do was review and approve. Susan wants them to collaborate and work together and stick to the agreed upon guidelines. She wants to participate in the committee. However, she did not want to be the leader of the committee. She didn't feel like that was a fair role for her to play because she is also the school leader. She didn't want to create this vision and um, have everybody feel obligated to agree with what she's saying. And she is new to the district, so she wanted to be open to suggestions and ideas from those people who have been in the school district for a while and have students and children in the school. So that created the conflict. I didn't find any legal issues. The guidelines that they agreed upon within the committee were just that, guidelines. I didn't think that it didn't appear that they were a legal contract. However, there were some ethical issues. The committee agreed upon these guidelines prior to starting their mission, and then once they started, they decided to change it. I didn't think that that was right. I didn't think that was fair. Um, it does not honor the terms of agreement upon being part of that committee. I didn't feel that they respected Susan. I feel as if they agreed to play a certain role, and once they were appointed to the committee, they decided to hand that role off to someone else who openly stated that she didn't feel it was right for her to be the leader in that situation. So Section 3 is to synthesize the issue, and my statement is my question is, how can we utilize different leadership styles to collaboratively develop a plan for creating a vision statement for the new school? Obviously, between Helen and Susan, there's conflict and there's different leadership styles there. Susan is a very collaborative leader. Helen wants to um, dictate almost, while appointing other people certain roles without having to get too heavily involved in the decision making process or the creating process of the vision statement. So here are the factors that I think need to be considered before deciding how to proceed with this conflict. We need to look at the people who are involved, the place, the community, the school, the program. I also think it's important to look at school-wide needs. What does this school need to be successful and to make this entire decision process and entire construction worth it? It's also an opportunity to create a new mission statement, a new vision, and set some new groundwork for that school. I also think it's important to consider the leadership styles of those involved, including the committee members, the principal, the superintendent, and the lead of the committee, who is Helen. And also just how to create overall success for students and staff and the community. I think that's the most important key, is how are we going to set the students up for academic success in this new school. The place that is involved in the situation is a rural community, farm community, and has a smaller district population, but is continuing to increase at a steady rate. The people involved are the superintendent, the school board members. I think that it's important to include them on this. Susan Potter, our principal, and the advisory committee, as well as the chair of the advisory, who is Helen. The program is a public school system. Currently, there are two schools, a K through 6 school and a 7 through 12. And with the new school, they will be divided into K through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. The mission and philosophies of the school, as well as the curriculum and ideas, are still being determined. Some questions I had about the community or the situation in general before deciding to proceed, I feel like needed to be addressed, were what are the cultural dynamics of the school and the community as a whole? Is the community heavily involved in the schools? Are the parents involved? I'd also be curious to see the history of the past principals and leaders in that school district. Since this is a new school, Susan is taking on a role that hasn't existed prior to the construction of this middle school building. And I think it's important to look at the history of past principals. What did they feel? What kind of vibe were they getting from the school district? Did they feel like they had a say? Did they feel like they had too much responsibilities? What kind of responsibilities were divided between them and others within the district? Again, talking about parent involvement in the PTO, wondering how heavily involved parents are, if they are interested in giving input on the new building, if they want to be involved in the vision making process. Also thinking about the staff turnaround rate within the school district. Has the staff that's been there, have they been there for a longer period of time? Do they fluctuate through staff members? What is that turnaround rate, and how happy are the staff members with the leadership that they have experienced within the school district in the past? How can Susan Potter kind of set the bar for what kind of principal and leader do you need? And I'm wondering about that board, the committee, the visionary committee. How did those members get selected? I know that there were parents and teachers both involved, but it seemed like there were a couple different parties that were included on that committee that maybe had a little bit of conflict of interest within the decision-making process of building the new school. So I'm just wondering how that board was selected, if they were voted upon, if they were just asked and they complied. So reviewing and prioritizing before making any next steps, I think it's important to look at the key stakeholders in this situation, which are the teachers. They're getting a new school. Are they going to be separated to this new school? What new teachers need to be hired? The students, students who are going to be in this new school, and future students. We need to set everyone up for success, as well as the parents. I think it's important that parents are involved throughout this entire process and that they have a vision and a committee as well. I'm wondering if everyone is being consulted and everyone's input is being considered. I don't feel that way. I don't feel like we have within the situation, asked parents, asked students what they want. I think that's the whole reason behind creating that committee is to get different inputs. But if the committee is full of members who have similar priorities, then I don't feel like we are getting a variety of opinions. So there are options and consequences to consider. I think the first option would be to just have the committee members submit their ideas individually for this vision statement, and from there take it and piece together one collaborative vision statement. I also thought that we could present different, Susan could present different examples of school vision statements to the board, and they could choose one that they felt fit them the best without fully creating a new vision statement specifically for their school. And the last option would be to gather suggestions from the stakeholders, the parents, the students, and the teachers. They could collaborate and prioritize the key ideas and the key suggestions, and then from there create a new vision based around that school. So option number one has some pros and cons. I think the pros would be it would just be in a good anonymous way for committee members to submit their ideas without feeling the pressure from other members. It would ease that tension of having to please certain members of the committee and telling people just what they want to hear. The cons would be the limited ideas, just a small committee, really limited, not sure if there's a bias or not within that selection of the committee members. And you'd have to make sure you were getting full honesty and the committee members weren't collaborating prior and saying, okay, this is the ideas that we're all going to submit, and or we're not going to submit at all because we want Susan to do the creation of this vision. And you just want everyone to participate. The pros and cons for option number two of presenting the examples to the board, it's less time consuming that these ideas are already created. You're not reinventing the wheel, and Susan could there comply with the committee of creating the vision without them having to do much work. The cons would be there's no collaboration, it's not personalized to the new school, and it goes against the guidelines that they agreed upon. The third option would be to gather suggestions from stakeholders. This would be collaborate and prioritize different ideas for a vision for the school. The pros would be you get multiple perspectives, and those who are directly affected are involved in the process. It promotes a collaborative effort. The cons would be it is time consuming, and there could be the possibility of a lot of different ideas and opinions, which could be hard to organize. With that said, I still felt like the best decision would be option three, was gathering suggestions from stakeholders. I think that it's the most collaborative approach. It supports a collaborative process for developing and implementing a school vision, which is really important. You don't just have one perspective or a few perspectives. It involves family members and caregivers in that decision-making process at the school, and it also shows positive leadership skills from Susan to be open to input outside of just the committee. So I think you could send out a survey to implement the decision. Committee members include their top 5 priorities for the school, what their just a brief personal vision for the school, and any areas of concern they would like addressed. You could do a similar survey for parents, but a little less specific. And I would just talk to the students. It would be great for Susan to get in and talk to them about what do they want for their new school, what are they excited about, and what changes would they like in this new building. I think the outcomes and consequences, there might not be a lot of participation depending on the cultural dynamics of the community and involvement of parents. You might get some pushback from the committee because they would have to be involved in, after receiving the ideas, prioritizing them and helping create that vision as a collaborative process. And there might not be a lot of variety of opinions. I think that the superintendent needs to be informed that this is the next step, and the committee members, they need to be told that, hey, I'm going to send out the survey, I'm going to get all these ideas, and then together we're going to work to create the vision. Plan B, in case that fell through, would be to I would go with finding prepared school vision examples and get the committee members to then pick apart the parts they liked and disliked from those examples and piece back together, create a blueprint, and from that blueprint, then create a vision. I think collaboration is key, utilizing strong areas of leadership in this decision